Hey church, we are back again with session 3 on making the Old Testament easy, and I pray that you have ventured a little bit more in discovering the Old Testament with all the help that has been given so far. Well, in session 1 we talked about basically the introduction and some FAQs. Session 2 we talked about the 7 important movements that talk about how God worked through the failure, the weaknesses of man, and how God brought His redemptive plan through the 7 important moves that eventually brought Israel to where Israel is today. Well, that's session 3, and of course that was the discussion last week was on the 7 move, right? And so there are 8 steps that we want to learn. Let me just refresh your memory so that you can understand the 8 steps that is so important, that will be the very basis of our learning as well as our lesson plan. Right? We talked about this last week, the 7 major moves of the people of the Old Testament. Today, we're going to talk about the 20 key people of the Old Testament. Let me just go through with you the others that we're going to talk about. 3 major divisions of the Old Testament. The 11 books that contains more than 95% of the narratives of the Old Testament. Easy way to remember the basic content of each of the books of the Old Testament. And God's 7 major covenant and 5 major time period. And the last step is the 50 major events of the Old Testament. Well, with these 8 steps, we'll get the Old Testament and in clarity, in greater clarity, and we will be absolutely confident to know how to see what God was doing through His people. Okay, step number 2, we are learning about the 20 key people of the Old Testament. Well, do you know that God always works through people? Jesus didn't die for a program. He didn't die for a plan. Well, He died for people. And so when God has a plan to execute something in history, it is very obvious that God always begins with a person. You will always find that God looks for one person, like a Gideon somewhere, like a Jephthah somewhere, like a Samson, like David. God always looks for one person, a key individual in history, in order to bring about His intended purpose. But let me ask you, you are a person, I'm a person, and we have a plan in God's divine wisdom, that God has a plan for us so that we can accomplish that plan that He has set apart for us. So I pray that you will also allow yourself to be used by God, because God always finds a person, a man, a woman that God can use. And so let's look now into the 20 key people of the Old Testament that we will definitely be inspired. And when we know these people, well, you begin to realize like, hey, it's only 20. So there are so many books and there's so much information in the Old Testament, but everything is summed up in 20. Well, that's how God has intended it to be, and that's why we call it making the Old Testament easy, right? So let's see. Now the first is the 6 important people in Genesis. Well, there are only 20. There are 20, but 6 are found in the book of Genesis. Right? 6 are found in Genesis. Who are they? Adam. Why Adam is important? Because he is the inception of mankind. He's the beginning of all. And so Adam is important. And of course, Noah was the one that bridged from the time when the destruction and the judgment came. Well, Noah bridged was the bridge towards God's next phase of plan or dream that God had in order to redeem the world and mankind. So, and of course, we must remember Abraham. Abraham is an important person because of the covenant that he made and the importance that Abraham brings for us as New Testament or New Covenant believer, that it is through Abraham that the world is blessed. All right, and we know that Isaac again is a very, very important person because the patriarchs, right? Abraham, Isaac, and of course Jacob, who are the fundamental key figures in the formation of the nation of Israel. Right? These are the six important, and the next person is Joseph. Joseph is again another key person because Joseph was a deliverer. He was a savior for Egypt. He saved his brothers. We have Jesus, who's our big brother. He saved us when we were in our famine, when we were in our drought. And so we see that six important people that form a very critical number among the 20 that we will see in the entire Old Testament. Then we find Israel's 11. All right, some of it are group of leaders actually, not just one individual. Israel's group of leaders. For example, of course, Moses is one of them. So you will see when I mention Israel's 11 leaders, and then in parentheses is group, there are some are individuals, some are group of leaders. So some are individuals, some are group of leaders. Okay. So then we have Joshua. Right, you know, Moses is key. He is the deliverer. He carries the image or the picture, like Jesus, who was a deliverer for us, who is a deliverer for us. And we have Joshua, whose name also means Yeshua, who is the deliverer, who brought the people into the promised land. And we have the 12 judges. These are the group of leaders, the judges who govern over Israel and brought Israel to experience God's path and plan. All right, and then of course we have Samuel. Okay, we have Samuel, who is an important individual. He is a key prophet who helped in the transition process from Saul to King David. And then we have King Saul himself, who is the first king of Israel. Israel never had a king. They were just at one point contended with judges, but of course they asked for a king because they saw other nations have kings, and it was against God's plan. But yet God gave them the king, knowing all the consequences that will come, that the king is going to take their children, the king is going to send their able men into war, the king is going to demand taxes, the king is even going to take some of their own possessions. So God made it very clear, but yet they wanted, and God gave. And God gave some really good kings for Israel, in fact. Saul was a good guy, but of course he suffered all the jealousy issue. And of course we have King David. And these are the 11, right? 6 out of the 11 group of leaders that Israel has. Okay, let's move on and find who are the other 5 that make up the 11. We've seen 6 so far. All right, we have Solomon, and we have the 39 kings of the divided kingdom, and we have Zerubbabel, we have Ezra, and we have Nehemiah. Solomon is the king. The 39 kings of the divided kingdom, remember 20 and 19. Then we have Zerubbabel, and who is one of the leader who returned back to restore the faith as well as to build the temple. Ezra is another one we talked about earlier on, about the return of Ezra, and of course Nehemiah, who restored the walls of Jerusalem. So these are the 11 important leaders or group of leaders in Israel. Right now, again, one more time, I thought about, I brought this to your attention in the last lesson about the divided kingdom, because we have these 39 kings of the divided kingdom. So I think it's good for us to see once again how the divided kingdom actually works. All right, one more time. Now we have the northern and the southern kingdom. Right, it's important, the northern and the southern kingdom, because they split after Solomon's death. Rehoboam and Jeroboam, two of the sons of Solomon, split their kingdom. And so we have Israel on the north and Judah on the south. And we have 10 tribes for the north and 2 tribes for the south. And we have Samaria as the capital of north and Jerusalem as capital of south. And we also have 19 kings on the north and 20 kings for the south. And we have no good king at all in the north. That's sad. Really sad when you cannot even find one good king. And of course, there were 8 good kings who helped Judah to chart and to navigate through the very difficult, very challenging time, even for the southern kingdom. So these 39 kings were considered as a group of leaders. So out of the 11, you need to consider the 39 as well. And you need to consider the judges as well that we talked about. And besides this, there are the 3 other that we want to see. It will be Pharaoh, all right? It will be Pharaoh. And then there will be Nebuchadnezzar, because Pharaoh had a considerable amount of influence on Israel in a good way under Joseph, or other pharaohs who came up after Joseph who had such a great influence, of course negatively, and put Israel under subjection, into slavery. So it was really very, very challenging and damaging for Israel. But yet the pharaohs played an important part in bringing about God's plan. Remember, all these 20 people that we're talking about, they all play important part in bringing about God's plan and bringing about God's purpose for His children. Now, sometimes you think, oh, you know what? Look, Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar, these are all bad guys. These are the guys who conquered. These are the guys who were a threat to Israel. Pharaohs who kept Israel as slaves for 430 years. That's pretty long, but very long. But yet they subjected Israel under the slavery. But yet, do you realize that God was actually using Pharaoh to bring about His purposes for Israel? And then we have Nebuchadnezzar, who came and who conquered and brought the southern kingdom into captivity. And some really good, able-bodied men and soldiers and kings and great godly men like Daniel and his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were all part of this exile plan that Nebuchadnezzar has planned. But yet, even though these are all, we call it leaders, who were there and they were exerting their power and their slavery on God's people, but God was using these people. God was using even a man like Pharaoh, a man like Nebuchadnezzar, in bringing about God's good purpose. So maybe you may be under a very difficult and a challenging boss. Maybe you're under difficult and challenging, teacher, a colleague. But you wonder if anything good can come out of this. Well, I have good news for you. If God can use Pharaoh, if God can use Nebuchadnezzar to bring about His perfect and wonderful plan, I'm sure God can also use you and bless you in your journey, even through all those difficult people that you really, really have to live with, right? And of course, the final other 3 of the groups will be the prophets. So we have the prophets, and they are important people who made a difference. They really dynamic difference in the life of God's people? Well, they were God's voice, they were God's ears, they were God's eyes that they could hear, they could see, they can speak, and they brought correction, and they brought alignment, they brought wisdom, they brought instruction, they brought a lot of positive influence and impact for God's people. So here we have all these kings, prophets, judges, individuals, even pagan or foreign kings that God was working through and building His purpose in and through them. Well, I pray right now, as we end session number 3, I pray that you will begin to see that some of the people that God used, some of the individuals that God brought about His good plan, even though those individuals were not good, you know what? I pray that you will see that not only with the people who are difficult to work with, and you are still working with them, and you're still coming through every week, gaining victory every week, but it has been tough. But I want to encourage you that God is working and God is on your side. And maybe you not only those people that are difficult to work with, but maybe there are some people that you least expected to be an instrument in God's hand, and maybe they are right now influencing you, they are affecting you, they are impacting you. Well, I pray that when you begin to see this group of people that we have talked about in this 20 key people that we talked about, I pray that it will really help you to know your role, to be used by God, as well as God's role in using difficult people to impact you. So God's not just interested in you, that God is also interested in difficult people whom He can work through, whom He can bring also a blessing in your life. They may be difficult people, but they're key people that God wants to use in your life and my life until we experience the fullness of God. So I pray that some of these prophets, some of these foreign kings, some of these individuals, some of these normal people, farmers, people who are working with cattle and sheep and shepherds, the ones that God raised up and God wants to use. So I pray that you will see that the 20 people, key people of the Old Testament are interesting characters. Some of them are pretty challenging because you don't realize that you may not know. You may be surprised how could God use such a people. Well, that gives me great hope because God can still use me. God can still touch me. Alright, so I pray that this lesson has really helped you. And we want to move on to the next lesson. And I pray that next lesson will continue to help you to ground yourself in understanding the plan of God for the Old Testament. Alright, so let's hang on to until we jump into lesson number 4. God bless you all. Hey church, we are moving on to session 4, and since that we ended session 3, which is much shorter, so we're going to jump into session 4, and session 4 will be looking through the division that is made that makes the Old Testament. Alright, the different division or how the Old Testament is divided. Now once again, let me just give you an overview of what we have covered so far. We covered the 7 major moves of the people of the Old Testament. Then we covered the 20 key people of the Old Testament. That was session 3. And of course today we're going to talk about the 3 major division of the Old Testament. Alright, the 3 major division of the Old Testament. Okay, that will be the step 3. The step 3 out of 8 steps that we are using in order to help us understand the Old Testament. Alright, we have already covered 2 steps out of the 8, And so now it's the third step out of the 8. All right. So let's jump in. The 3 major divisions of the Old Testament as seen in the Hebrew Bible, all right, which is also known as the scripture where we have drawn our Old Testament from. As I mentioned, the Hebrew Old Testament is only 24 books, whereas the English Old Testament is 39 books. Now the reason is certain books like First Kings, Second Kings, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, First Samuel, Second Samuel, Ezra, Nehemiah. Those books are all lumped into as one, like Samuel, not First and Second, or Chronicle, First and Second Chronicles. No, just Chronicles. So in that way, that's how. And even the minor prophets, right? The minor prophets, they are all not seen as 12 minor prophets, but as just prophets. So the minor prophets and the 12 will be lumped as one book. So in that way, it becomes 24 book and not 39. But the content are all the same. So now, first and foremost, the 3 major divisions of the Old Testament as we see it in the Hebrew Bible is first, the law of Moses or the Torah. And second is the prophets, Nevi'im, we covered this. And then the writings, Ketu'vim. What are the books inside all these 3 divisions? We'll come to that in a while. And this is what we know as the Tanakh. The Tanakh is the compound word of the 3, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketu'vim. So the first 2 alphabets of each of these have been formed to make Tanakh. Right? Now, did Jesus talk about the Old Testament? And was he referred to in the Old Testament? Yes, even Jesus gave his understanding of how the Old Testament speaks about him. Luke chapter 24, verse 27. We talk about the time when Jesus was meeting with the disciples who were on the way to Emmaus, on the road to Emmaus. And Jesus, they were not aware who Jesus was, but they knew that Jesus was crucified. But here Jesus was walking with them, and he was trying to draw them into seeing what God has been doing all this while. And so he opens up the scripture. The Bible says, and beginning with Moses and the prophets. See, Moses, the law, the prophets is the prophetic books and that we've seen just now. He explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. All right, so the scriptures is Ketu'vim. So Moses, prophets, Ketu'vim, the scriptures are the 3 components that makes up the Old Testament for the Jewish Bible or the Tanakh. So Jesus is saying literally that from the beginning with Moses and the prophets and the Ketu'vim or the scriptures, everything was speaking concerning himself. And he was telling them and teaching them that, look, the Old Testament speaks about me and you don't even know it's me. Right? So he's bringing that understanding to them. So let's look at in detail of the 3 divisions of the Tanakh. First of all, the law of Moses, which has got 5 books. Okay, the law of Moses, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The law is also known as the Torah. In Hebrew, it's known as Torah, Pentateuch in Greek. All right, Penta, which is 5. So Torah means the teachings. It's the law, the teachings of the law that was given to God's people in order to govern their life. And so this is the law of Moses, very sacred material. And then we come to the prophets of the Nevi'im. There are a total of 8 books, so 5 in Torah and then 8 in the prophets. So what are the books? The prophets, there are 8. And what are they? The former prophets. So this is how it is divided in the Hebrew Bible, right? So the former prophets are known as Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings. Remember, I mentioned I'm writing it as 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, so that you can understand. But in the Hebrew composition, it is only seen as Samuel, Kings. They do not separate the 1 and 2, 1st and 2nd. They don't. This is known as the former prophet books. And then Then there's a lettered prophets. That means those who have written much later. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12 minor prophets. See, I put it all of the 12 in a parenthesis because they are seen as one. Alright, so that's how we get the 8. So we have Joshua, we have Judges, we have Samuel, we have Kings, and then we have Isaiah, we have Jeremiah, Ezekiel, that's 7, and then 8, the 12 minor prophets. So that makes it 8 in the Nevi'im, in the prophets. Of course, the minor prophets, as you can see in the parenthesis, will be Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. So these are the how the division of the prophets or Nevi'im is done. All right. So we had 5, and then we have 8. All right. And then we have the Ketu'vim. All right. You look at the Ketu'vim. So these are the balance of the books that will make up to 24. All right. So Ketu'vim will be the following. So it is divided as religious, poetry, and wisdom literature. Psalm, Proverbs, even Job is put under religious poetry and wisdom literature. Remember, this is the Jewish, the Tanakh, how they divided it. And in a short while, I'll show you how the English Bible has been divided for our consumption when we engage with the Bible. Then the second segment of the Ketu'vim is known as 5 scrolls. 5 scrolls, and they are Songs of Songs, Ruth, Lamentation, Ecclesiastes, and Esther. 5 scrolls. And then finally comes the historical. Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So if you can look at this, you will see you have another 11 more books that makes up the 24. So you have Psalm, you have Proverbs, you have Job, you have Song of Songs, you have Ruth, you have Lamentation, Ecclesiastes, Esther. All right, you got Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and you have Chronicles. So these are 12, but remember, I mentioned to you earlier on that Ezra and Nehemiah in the Hebrew Bible are merged as one. So Ezra and Nehemiah is one, 1st and 2nd Chronicles is merged as one for the Hebrew Bible. So that's why you have 11. So there was 5 under the Torah, and then there is 8 under the Nevi'im, which is the prophets, and then we have 11 under the Ketu'vim, which are the writings, are also known as the scriptures, like how Jesus addressed it, how Luke addressed it in his writing when Jesus was talking to the 2 disciples in the road to Emmaus. He says, Moses, the prophet, and the scriptures. So here we have in the Hebrew Tanakh how they have done the division of their Hebrew scriptures or the Hebrew Bible. Now, something interesting takes place when it comes to our English Bible. First and foremost, with the printing press, right? Okay, there is a place for sequencing. That means which book comes first, right? Which book would follow which had to be decided. Unlike when each book was written on a separate scroll. So when everything written on a separate scroll and they all are standalone, so we will not have to worry about sequencing. But of course, with printing press, and when books are made, Old Testament, New Testament are made into proper binding and proper canonization, like we discussed earlier on, then we realize that sequencing becomes important. Now, to large degree, the groupings remain somewhat similar to the 3 groups we have just reviewed in the Tanakh or the Hebrew Bible, right? But some major reorganizations of the literature, with some major reorganization of the literature, except for some, but pretty much the groupings remain somewhat similar, not all, but somewhat similar when it comes to the English Bible. All right, so let's see. The new reorganization of the literature in the English Bible are according to the historical books. First of all, the historical books, which we will see, there will be 17 books. This is how you can memorize the entire Old Testament division for the English Bible. All right, so and then you find the poetical books, which is 5, and then you will find the prophetical books, which are 17. So we have 17, 5, 17. All right, so this is how, when you see the English Bible, how it has been, the divisions are made. All right, it's pretty much the same as the Hebrew, but it is just that they have more number of books, because First Samuel, Second Samuel, First Kings, Second Kings, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, and Ezra, Nehemiah. So because of all this, and the 12 minor prophets are counted as individual books in the English Bible. So that makes it 39. But pretty much the division of it is almost the same. We call it historical, all right, poetical and prophetical. Of course, the prophetical is still there, the poetical, the wisdom literature is still there, and the historical. But the formation of it, how we get the 17, how we get the 5, how we go to the another 17, are a bit different. So let me just help you to walk you through how the 17, 5, 17. So remember, your Old Testament can be seen as 17, 5, 17. Right? Interesting facts that will help you to remember and go in detail about the books of the Old Testament that we are looking into. First of all, there are 17 historical books. They are the very first 17 books of the Old Testament. All right. Now remember, in the historical, the law are also put inside under the historical. The law. Remember, we talked about the law, which is the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They are also absorbed into the historical. And so that makes it into the 17. I'll show you all the books. How do we get the first 17? The first books, when you open your New Testament, you see the first 17 books. Okay, these are all 17 are seen as the historical books. The second, the last 17. First 17, last 17. Remember, 17, 5, 17. Alright? So the first 17, historical book. Then the last 17 are known as the prophetical book, which they are the very last 17 books of the Old Testament. And then there are the 5 poetical books, squarely in the middle of the two groups of 17. Alright, two groups. So 17, 5, 17. So historical books, 17, and then they're the first 17, and then prophetical book, the last 17 books, and the middle is the poetical book, which is 5. So it's very easy for you to remember and memorize your Old Testament books. 17, 5, 17. There you go. 17, 5, 17. So that's how it is. But let's look in the next slide how the books are arranged, because what you see as historical books in the Hebrew Bible, the way it is arranged, even though they are same material, even though they are same, but the places where it is arranged is different. Okay, let just give you an example, like First Kings, Second Kings. It is arranged as a historical book, whereas in one place in the English Bible, but not so. But First Kings, Second Kings, and Samuel is arranged as a prophetical book in the Hebrew Bible. So it's a matter of how they have placed it. So for our English Bible, let's remember this: 17, 5, 7. All right. So how it looks like is so 17, 5, 17. Sorry, 17, 5, 17. That's how you can remember. So the first 17 books are the historical books, then the last 17 books are the prophetical book, and then the 5 books are poetical books in the middle. Okay, so this is how it looks like if you see this screen. So the historical books are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, First Samuel, Second Samuel, First Kings, Second Kings, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. And then the 5 poetical books that we can see: Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon, of Songs of Songs. And then we see the prophetical book, which are all the first. We see the first 5 books are the major prophets, and then the next 12 are the minor prophets. And you can read it there under the prophetical column. So now, how the Old Testament actually looks like in the English Bible, right? If you look at how the Old Testament will look like in the English Bible, well, it is pretty much the same number of books. Same number as, because the Hebrew is 24, the English is 39. Well, but the way that they are arranged, like I mentioned, 1 Kings, 2 Kings are 1, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles are 1, Ezra, Nehemiah are 1, the 12 minor prophets are 1. So, but the books are the same. The books are the same. The material or the content are the same. But how it is arranged are different. So when you look at a English Old Testament, you will see that the first 5 books as Pentateuch, and then the historical book, and then you have the poetical wisdom books, and then you have the prophetical books. So when you look at it in a normal, divided into 4 sections actually: Pentateuch, historical, and then poetry and wisdom, and then prophetical. Of course, the arrangement that I showed you just now, the Pentateuch and the historical are put as one. All right, they are put as one, and then the poetical and the wisdom, and then the prophetic. So when you see the 17, 5:17, so Pentateuch or the law and the historicals are merged into one. All right, they are merged into one, and then poetry and wisdom by itself in the middle, and then another 17, the prophetic there. So but when you look at it on a book or a notes like this, or division, you will see there are 4 sections. But for memory's sake, all right, for memory's sake, let's merge the Pentateuch and the historical, and then makes it 17, 5, poetry and wisdom, another 17 to make it prophetic. So that's the easy way for us to remember. But the way it is divided is Pentateuch, historical, poetry, wisdom, prophetical. Well, let's look at it, how it is for easy memory, all right? First, the 17 historical books are further divided into groups of 5 and 12, like I mentioned just now. What are they? 5 Pentateuch and 12 historical books. 5 law, 5 historical. So 5, 12, 17. All right? And then the 17 prophetical book, which is the last book of the New Testament, of our English New Testament, are further divided into groups of 5 and 12. How are they? 5 major prophet and 5 minor prophet. So this is how it is divided. All right? And easy for us to remember. And then right in the middle are of the 17 are the 5 poetical books. All right? 5 poetical books. Very easy. So you have 17. So how do we get the first 17? We merge the Pentateuch and the historical, so they become 17. And then the last 17 are the prophetical books, and the middle 5 poetical wisdom books. Right? So again, once again, this is how it has been arranged. But for memory, I've made it easy for you. 17, 5, 7. Right now, 5 books in the Pentateuch, 5 in the poetical, and 5 major prophet. 5, 5, 5. All right. So this is another way to remember the books. 5, 5, 5. 5 books in the Pentateuch, 5 books in the poetical, 5 books in the major prophet. Right? 5, 5, 5. So the first 5, and then the middle 5, and then the first 5 of the last 17. So it is up to you how you want to memorize it, or for you to remember. But I'm putting it easily. I'm putting it easy with the number 5, 5, 5. So you will know how and where this 5, 5, 5 can be located. All right. And then the 12 historical books, and then also the 12 minor prophets. So actually you can divide it into these two major, which will give you 555, 12, 12, right? 555, 12, 12. So, so three major section, which is historical, poetical, and prophetical. So first 5 will be the Pentateuch, next 5 will be the poetical, and then another 5 is the 5 major prophet, and then 12 historical book, 12 minor prophets. So if you want to remember with numbers, 555, you know which are they? 12, 12, you know which are they? 17, 5, 17, you know what are they? So this is the easier way to see and have an overview of the Old Testament. So I pray that even as you just let me walk you through the content of the Hebrew Old Testament, which is the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketu'vim, and the books are all arranged differently based on how they would want it to be, based on the law, the prophets, and they call it the writing. So we call it, the historical, poetical, and prophetical, right? And so this is how we can see how the major divisions of the books are. And of course, if you divide the historical to two parts, it will be Pentateuch and the history. So for memory's sake, you can put them as the three major divisions: historical, poetical, and prophetic. So in that way, you can see the 17, 5, 17, or 5, 5, 5, 12, 12, right? So whichever way you put, by using those numbers, it will bring your memory to recognize first 5 Pentateuch, 5 poetical, 5 major prophets, 12 historical book, 12 minor prophets. You use those numbers to help you to remember. Or you can say 17, 5, 17. All right, 17 historical. Historicals are the Pentateuch and the history books. 5 poetical book. 17 prophetical book, which is 5 and 12. So I hope I've given you some handle in how to remember all the books, and I trust that this will be easy for you, and that you can now venture a little bit further to understand the steps. The 8 steps, we have covered 3. All right, we have covered 3 out of the 8, and I hope that this has made your learning so much easier and more exciting, and not to be intimidated or afraid or feel overwhelmed by the Old Testament narratives or the document that we have in our hands. Well, remember the 8 steps, but the 3 that we have covered are: number 1, the 7 move of God's people in the Old Testament. Number 2, we found the 20 people who made a difference in the Old Testament. 20, right? Leaders and groups of leaders. And number 3, we saw the 3 major division of the Old Testament. So in that way, I pray that we have covered quite a bit out of the 8, and we'll definitely cover the rest. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, remember to email. All right. Remember to email your questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions. God bless you, and we'll see you real soon. And thank you very much for being part of this training.